I found myself standing in the vacant house where I had raised my children, each corner steeped in memories, and a realization struck me that made my hands tremble. Not one of them had reached out to me in 3 months, not on my birthday, not on Thanksgiving, not even with a simple text. The silence was overwhelming, but what pained me most was the knowledge of why they had distanced themselves. I had ceased to pay their bills. My name is Barbara, and I am 68 years old. I'm sharing this story from a place my children will never discover, and honestly, that is precisely how I wish it to be. Before I recount what I did with the house they all fought over, I would like to ask you a question. Where are you watching this from? Please share your location in the comments, as I seek reassurance that I am not alone in this experience. I wish to connect with other women who may resonate with what I am about to share. This story began 5 years ago when my husband, Richard, passed away. We had been married for 43 years. He was a good man and a provider, leaving me in a comfortable position, though not wealthy, certainly secure. I owned a paid-off house valued at approximately $800,000, along with his life insurance and pension. Between these and my own Social Security, I had sufficient means to live well for the remainder of my life. I have 3 children: Daniel, my eldest at 45, Jennifer, 42, and Michael, my youngest, who just turned 39. Additionally, I have 7 grandchildren among them. For years, I believed I had fulfilled my role as a mother, making sacrifices, offering support, and celebrating their achievements. Richard and I financed their college educations and assisted with down payments on their first homes. We were present for every crisis, every celebration, and every milestone. However, following Richard's death, something changed. Initially, I assumed they were merely being helpful. Daniel suggested I downsize, claiming the house was too much for me to manage alone. Jennifer took charge of my finances, insisting I shouldn't burden myself with complicated numbers. Michael moved his family closer, expressing a desire to keep an eye on me. Grieving, lonely, and thankful for their attention, I failed to recognize the trap closing around me until it was nearly too late. It began with small requests. Daniel's business faced difficulties. Could I help with his mortgage for a few months? Jennifer's daughter required braces, and with 3 children, money was tight. Could I assist? Michael's car broke down, and he needed reliable transportation for work. "Just this once, Mom. We'll pay you back," they would say. I agreed every time. What mother wouldn't? These were my children, my beloveds, and they needed me. Richard would have helped them too. I was certain of it. So I wrote the checks, covered the bills, and became their safety net, their backup plan, their endless source of emergency funds. Yet the emergencies never ceased, and the paybacks never materialized. Gradually, I transformed from their mother into something else entirely: a bank, an ATM that happened to share their DNA. The requests became incessant. Jennifer needed assistance with her children's private school tuition. Daniel required an infusion of cash for his business to remain afloat. Michael wished to renovate his basement. Then came the birthdays, holidays, and unexpected expenses that always landed on my doorstep. One sleepless night, I calculated that over 4 years I had given them nearly $300,000, $300,000 from the savings Richard and I had worked our entire lives to accumulate. What truly struck me was that they no longer asked, they demanded, they expected. Jennifer would call, stating she had already enrolled her children in summer camp and required $4,500 by Friday. Daniel would text me his mortgage payment amount with a reminder of its due date. Michael stopped pretending these were loans at all. I began experiencing nightmares about depleting my finances. I was now dipping into my principal, not merely relying on interest and Social Security. My financial advisor, a kind man named Thomas, who had worked with Richard for years, sat me down to review projections. At this rate, I would be broke in 6 years, broke at 74 years old with nothing left and nowhere to go. "Barbara," Thomas said gently, "you need to stop. Your children are adults. They need to resolve their own financial issues." I recognized he was right. God, I knew he was right. Yet saying no to your children, even when they are middle-aged and draining your resources, is one of the most challenging things a mother can do. I loved them. I wanted them to be happy, secure, and to lead fulfilling lives. Wasn't that what mothers were meant to do? It took me 3 months to muster the courage to act. 3 months of sleepless nights, anxiety attacks, and rehearsing what I would say. Finally, I called a family meeting, prepared dinner, set the table elegantly, and awaited their arrival. Only Daniel showed up on time. Jennifer arrived 40 minutes late, and Michael texted that he couldn't attend but would prefer to hear what I had to say over the phone. That should have signaled to me just how much I truly mattered to them. I had prepared an entire speech, intending to explain the financial situation, the projections, and my need to safeguard my future. I aimed to be kind yet firm, loving yet clear. I even wrote notes on index cards, which I kept in my cardigan pocket. But when I opened my mouth, the words that emerged were much simpler. I can't keep giving you money. I'm sorry, but I can't anymore. The ensuing silence felt like a palpable force. Daniel slowly placed his fork down. Jennifer's expression turned completely blank. On speakerphone, I heard Michael's sharp intake of breath. "What do you mean you can't?" Jennifer asked, her tone edged with a hardness I had never heard before, cold and unyielding, as if I were a stranger who had just insulted her. "I mean exactly that," I replied, my voice trembling despite my attempts to sound resolute. "I have been depleting my savings too quickly. If I continue down this path, I will have nothing left for my own future, for my own care if the need arises." Daniel leaned back in his chair, his expression inscrutable. "Mom, you have plenty of money. Dad left you very comfortable. You live alone in a house worth nearly $1 million. You're being dramatic." "I'm being realistic," I countered, pulling out the papers Thomas had provided me. "Look at these projections. See how much I've given you over the past 4 years. It's not sustainable." Jennifer snatched the papers from my hand, her perfectly manicured nails catching the light. She barely glanced at them before tossing them back onto the table. "These numbers are wrong. You're allowing that advisor of yours to manipulate you. He probably wants you to invest more with him." "Thomas has been nothing but honest with me," I replied, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. "And these figures are indeed accurate. I have the bank statements to prove it." Michael's voice crackled through the speaker. "So, what are you saying exactly, Mom? That you're just cutting us off after everything we do for you?" That halted me in my tracks. "Everything you do for me? What exactly do you do for me? Are you serious right now?" Jennifer's voice escalated. "I manage your finances. I ensure you're not being scammed. I check on you constantly." "You manage my finances so you know exactly how much I have left to take," I said, observing her face flush red. "And you don't check on me. You monitor my bank account." Daniel abruptly stood, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "This is unbelievable. We're your children, Mom. Family helps family. That's what Dad would have wanted." "Don't you dare tell me what your father would have wanted," I said, my voice stronger than I had heard it in years. "Richard worked tirelessly to provide for this family. He saved every penny so we could have security in our old age. He didn't do that for you to squander it and leave me with nothing." The words lingered in the air like smoke. Jennifer gathered her purse, her movements sharp and angry. "I think we should leave, Daniel. Clearly, Mom has made up her mind to be selfish." Selfish? That word struck me like a slap. After everything I had given them, every sacrifice, every check written, every bill paid, I was deemed selfish for wanting to protect my own future. "Fine," I said quietly. "Go. But understand this. I love you all more than life itself, but I am done being your ATM. You are adults. You have jobs, homes, and families. It is time for you to learn to live within your means." They departed without bidding farewell. Michael hung up without a word. I sat alone at the dinner table, gazing at the meal I had prepared, the beautifully set dishes, and I wept until I had no tears left. That was 11 months ago. In the initial weeks following the meeting, I convinced myself that things would eventually settle. They were angry, hurt, and defensive, but they would come to terms with it. We were family. One does not simply discard family over financial matters. They would cool off, reflect, and recognize that I was right. How naive I was. The calls ceased entirely. Jennifer, who used to contact me 3 times a week, fell silent. Daniel, who had previously visited every Sunday for coffee, never returned. Michael blocked me on social media. When I attempted to call them, the conversations were brief and cold. Can't talk right now, Mom. Really busy with work. The kids have activities. Always an excuse. Always a reason to end the conversation. I was not invited to Daniel's son's birthday party, which shattered me. Little Tommy was turning 7, my first grandchild. I had attended every single one of his birthdays since his birth. I sent a gift anyway, a remote control car he had mentioned wanting. It was never acknowledged. No thank you card, no phone call, nothing. Thanksgiving came and went. I had hosted Thanksgiving at my home for 43 years. It was our tradition. I would begin preparations days in advance, cooking Richard's favorite dishes and ensuring everything was perfect. This year, I waited for someone to mention plans. No one did. I finally broke down and called Jennifer. "Oh," she replied, her voice flat. "We're doing Thanksgiving at Daniel's this year." "Didn't he tell you?" "No," I replied, my throat tightening. "He didn't." A pause ensued. "Well, I'm sure it just slipped his mind. You know how busy he is." "Am I invited?" I inquired, hating how small my voice sounded. Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. Things are still really tense. Maybe we should all have some space." Space? They wanted distance from me because I had ceased funding their lifestyles. I spent Thanksgiving alone for the first time in my life, consuming a turkey sandwich and watching old movies, trying not to dwell on my children and grandchildren gathering without me. Christmas was even more painful. I sent gifts for all 7 grandchildren, carefully chosen and lovingly wrapped. I also included checks for my children, albeit smaller amounts than before, but still generous. I hoped this would open the door, demonstrating that I wasn't abandoning them entirely. The gifts went unacknowledged. Not one thank you, not one phone call. The checks were cashed within days, but the silence remained. I attempted everything. I sent texts that went unanswered. I left voicemails that were ignored. I even drove to Jennifer's home once. She answered the door but wouldn't let me in. "I'm really busy, Mom. Maybe call first next time." Then she closed the door in my face. I stood on her porch, where I had once been welcomed with hugs and coffee, with grandchildren rushing to greet me, and I realized something dreadful. They didn't love me. They loved my money. Now that the money was gone, so was their affection. I spent months enveloped in a fog of grief. This was not akin to losing Richard. When Richard died, I was surrounded by love, support, and people who cared. This was different. This was being erased from my own family's life, like a document deleted, as if I had never mattered at all. The rejection was suffocating. My doctor prescribed antidepressants. I ceased attending my book club because people would inquire about my grandchildren, and I couldn't bear to explain why I never saw them anymore. I lost weight and struggled with sleep. The house felt like a mausoleum filled with photographs of a family that no longer wanted me. Then, one day in March, 8 months after I had stopped the financial support, I overheard something that changed everything. I was at the grocery store and spotted Daniel's wife, Patricia, in the next aisle. I almost approached her, desperate for any connection to my family, but something held me back. She was on her phone, and her voice carried. "I know, right? She actually thinks we'll keep coming around after she cut us off. Like, hello, we have our own lives." A pause, then laughter. "Daniel says we should just wait her out. She's old. Eventually she'll die and we'll get the house anyway. Why waste time and energy pretending to care?" I stood frozen between shelves of canned goods, my shopping basket hanging from my arm, listening to my daughter-in-law laugh about anticipating my death, not because she would miss me, but because she desired my house. Something within me cracked open. But it wasn't pain. It was clarity. Ice-cold, crystal-clear clarity. They were waiting for me to die so they could inherit my house. They had already decided among themselves how to divide it, likely arguing over percentages. I was merely an obstacle between them and $800,000 in real estate. My death was a financial event they were anticipating, perhaps even hoping for. I walked out of that grocery store, leaving my cart abandoned in the aisle. Sitting in my car in the parking lot, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. I didn't cry. Instead, I called Thomas, my financial advisor. "Thomas," I said when he answered, "I need to discuss selling my house." "Barbara, are you sure? That's a significant decision." "Perhaps we should." "I have never been more certain about anything in my life," I interrupted. "I want to sell it as quickly as possible, and I don't want my children to know until it's done. There was a prolonged silence. Okay, let's schedule a meeting. But Barbara, what are you planning to do? What was I planning to do? I was planning to reclaim my life. I was planning to stop being a victim. I was planning to ensure that those who had treated me like a disposable ATM, who had erased me from their lives, would inherit precisely what they deserved: nothing. I am planning to disappear, I told him, and I need your assistance. If you are still watching, please hit that subscribe button, as what I did next was entirely unexpected for them. Thomas and I met the following day in his office. I brought every financial document I could find, every bank statement, every piece of paper related to my assets. I laid them all out on his conference table like evidence in a trial. Walk me through this, I said. If I sell the house, what am I looking at? Thomas pulled up his calculator and began working through the numbers. The market is strong right now. Your house is in excellent condition in a desirable neighborhood. We could list it for $850,000, perhaps $900,000 if we are aggressive. After real estate fees and capital gains taxes, you would walk away with approximately $700,000. $700,000. Combined with what remained of my savings and Richard's life insurance, I would have nearly $1 million, more than enough to start anew somewhere fresh. How long would it take to sell? I inquired. In this market, if we price it correctly, perhaps 30 to 60 days, could be quicker. I want to proceed, I stated firmly. But Thomas, I need this to remain confidential. I do not want my children finding out until after the sale is finalized. Thomas leaned back in his chair, studying me. Barbara, I must ask, are you absolutely certain about this? Once you sell, there is no turning back, and your children will be furious. My children haven't spoken to me in 8 months, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice was. They have made it abundantly clear that I only matter to them as a future inheritance. Well, they can inherit the memories. The house is mine, and I am selling it. We listed the house 2 weeks later. Thomas introduced me to a realtor he trusted, a sharp woman named Susan, who understood the need for discretion. We priced it competitively at $875,000. Susan arranged for professional photos to be taken and staged the house beautifully. Within 3 days, we received multiple offers. I accepted an offer of $910,000 from a young couple expecting their first child. The irony was not lost on me. I was selling the house where I had raised my family to a couple just beginning theirs. I hoped they would fill it with more love than mine had shown me. The closing was scheduled for 45 days later. During those 45 days, I meticulously planned my escape. I researched cities I had always wanted to explore. I looked at apartments in areas where the cost of living was lower, where my money would stretch further, and where no one knew me or my history. I settled on Asheville, North Carolina. I had visited once with Richard 30 years ago and had fallen in love with the mountains, the art scene, and the gentle pace of life. I found a beautiful 2-bedroom condo with a mountain view for $320,000. I could purchase it outright, free of mortgage, and still have ample funds to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I began packing slowly and carefully, sorting through 43 years of memories, deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to discard. Every photo album, every piece of furniture, every dish and decoration held a story. Some brought smiles, while most evoked sadness. The hardest part was the photographs, boxes and boxes spanning decades. Baby pictures, birthday parties, graduations, weddings. I had been the family archivist, documenting every milestone, holiday, and precious moment. I stared at a photo of 5-year-old Jennifer on Christmas morning, her face aglow with joy as she unwrapped presents. Where was that little girl now? What had transformed her into someone capable of completely cutting out her mother? I packed one photo album to take with me, just one. The rest I left in boxes in the basement for whomever purchased the house to deal with. Let them ponder the family in the pictures. Let them imagine we were happy. 3 weeks before closing, Jennifer called me for the first time in 9 months. My heart leaped at seeing her name on my phone screen. Perhaps she had experienced a change of heart. Perhaps she missed me. Perhaps this nightmare was finally concluding. "Mom," she said, her voice bright but insincere. "I was thinking about you today. How are you? I'm fine, I replied cautiously. How are you? How are the kids? Oh, everyone is great. Listen, Mom, I wanted to apologize. I think we all overreacted about the money thing. Family is what matters, right? Not money. I nearly laughed at the irony. That's very mature of you, Jennifer. So I was thinking, why don't you come to dinner this Sunday? The whole family will be there. It's been too long. The whole family? After 9 months of silence, they suddenly wanted to see me. I knew precisely what this was about. Someone had driven by the house and noticed the for sale sign, or perhaps a neighbor had mentioned it. They had discovered the news and were now panicking. That sounds lovely, I fibbed. Sunday works for me. Great, come around 5. And Mom, we really have missed you. No, you haven't, I thought. You've missed your inheritance. I did not attend dinner that Sunday. Instead, I sent a group text to all 3 of my children at 4:45 p.m. Sorry, not feeling well. Have to cancel. Hope you all enjoy your evening together. Then I turned off my phone. I envisioned them seated around Daniel's dining room table, glancing at their watches, calling my number, and reaching voicemail. I imagined their frustration, their anger, their panic, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not sadness, only a peculiar, peaceful numbness. The closing transpired on a Tuesday morning in mid-May. I signed document after document, my hands steady. Susan handed me a check for $862,000 after all fees and commissions. I stared at that check, representing everything Richard and I had built, and felt the weight of my old life lift from my shoulders. The buyers appeared to be good people. The wife was heavily pregnant, glowing with excitement about their new home. The husband spoke enthusiastically about the backyard, envisioning how perfect it would be for their daughter to play in. I wished them well and genuinely meant it. I walked out of that lawyer's office a free woman. That same afternoon, I arrived at my new condo in Asheville. The moving company I had hired had delivered my carefully selected belongings the day before. I had not brought much, just a bedroom set, my favorite chair, some books, my clothes, and that one photo album. Everything else I had either sold, donated, or left behind. The condo was on the 3rd floor with a balcony overlooking the mountains. It was a fraction of the size of my old house, and it was perfect. Clean, simple, unburdened by memories of betrayal. I stood on that balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, and I breathed deeply for what felt like the first time in years. I had left a note for my children at the old house, taped to the kitchen counter where I knew they would eventually find it. I spent hours writing and rewriting it, striving to find words that would adequately convey everything I felt. In the end, I kept it simple. Dear Daniel, Jennifer, and Michael, by the time you read this, I will be gone, and the house will belong to someone else. I am certain you are angry and feel betrayed. However, I need you to understand something. For the last 5 years, you treated me like a bank account with a pulse. You took and took and took, and when I finally said no, you erased me from your lives. You stopped calling. You cut me out. You made it clear that I only mattered to you as a source of money and a future inheritance. I overheard Patricia on the phone, laughing about waiting for me to die so you could acquire this house. Thus, I made the decision easy for you. You no longer need to wait. I am gone, and so is your inheritance. I hope the $300,000 I provided you over the years was worth losing your mother. I hope that when you are my age, your children treat you better than you treated me. The house is sold, the money is mine, and I am starting over somewhere you will never find me. Don't bother looking. I made copies of that note and mailed them to each of my children's homes, ensuring they arrived the day after the closing. I wanted them to receive the news separately and privately, so they could not immediately join forces and strategize. I wanted each of them to reflect on what they had lost, what they had thrown away, and what their greed had cost them. My phone, which I had turned back on after arriving in Asheville, began ringing that evening. First it was Jennifer, then Daniel, then Michael. The calls kept coming. I allowed each one to go to voicemail. I listened to the messages once, a parade of rage, disbelief, and accusations. How could you do this to us? Jennifer shrieked. This is theft, Mom. That house was our inheritance. Daniel's voice was cold with fury. You will regret this. Family doesn't treat family this way. Michael sounded more hurt than angry, which almost made me laugh. Family doesn't treat family this way. The irony was completely lost on him. I deleted every message and blocked all 3 numbers. The first month in Asheville felt strange. I kept anticipating the guilt to wash over me, for regret to settle in, for the maternal instinct to compel me to reach out to my children. It never came. Instead, what emerged was peace, actual, genuine peace that I hadn't experienced in years. I joined a book club at the local library, enrolled in watercolor classes at the community center, and volunteered at a women's shelter twice a week, aiding other women who were rebuilding their lives after difficult circumstances. I made friends, real friends who appreciated me for who I was, not for what I could provide. One of those friends was Margaret, a 72-year-old retired teacher who lived 2 doors down from me. Over coffee one morning, about 2 months after my move, she inquired about my family. It was the first time anyone had asked directly. "I have 3 children," I replied cautiously. "We are not in contact." Margaret nodded, not pressing for details. Sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. "Did you have children?" I asked. "2 sons. One died in a car accident when he was 23. The other, well, let's just say we had different ideas about what family means. I haven't seen him in 15 years. Do you regret it? The estrangement?" Margaret contemplated this, stirring her coffee slowly. "I regret that he chose money over our relationship. I regret that he became someone I don't recognize. But do I regret protecting myself? No, not even a little bit. Barbara, there comes a point where you must choose between preserving your dignity or maintaining a relationship that is already dead. You cannot do both." Her words settled something within me that I had not realized was still unsettled. Approximately 3 months after I moved, I received a certified letter from an attorney representing all 3 of my children. They were contesting the sale of the house, claiming I was mentally incompetent when I made the decision and that I had been unduly influenced by my financial advisor. They argued that as my children, they had a right to inherit the family home. I read the letter twice before calling my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, who specialized in elder law. She reviewed their claims and actually laughed. "Barbara, this is nonsense. You were evaluated by your doctor as mentally competent. You made a legal sale of property you owned outright. Your children have no legal standing whatsoever. This is a desperate attempt at intimidation. So what should I do? Nothing. I will respond to their attorney, shut this down, and that will be the end of it. However, I must ask, do you want me to include a cease and desist? Make it clear they are not to contact you further." I thought about my children, likely huddled with their lawyer, convinced they could bully or manipulate me back into their lives and back into my role as their personal bank account. "Yes," I stated firmly. "Make it abundantly clear." Patricia drafted a response that left no room for interpretation. My children had no claim to my property, no right to my money, and no standing to question my choices. The legal letter marked the end of their attempts to reach me. Once Patricia's response made it clear they had no case, the calls and emails ceased entirely. It was as if they had finally accepted that I was serious, that I was genuinely gone, and that the money was truly beyond their reach. I would be dishonest if I claimed it didn't hurt. These were my children, individuals I had carried in my body, raised and loved with every fiber of my being. There were moments when I would see a grandmother with her grandchildren at the park and feel a sharp pain in my chest. There were holidays that felt empty, despite my new friends. There were nights when I lay awake, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. But then I would recall Patricia's voice at the grocery store, laughing about waiting for me to die. I would remember the 9 months of complete silence, the erasure, the casual cruelty of being treated as if I didn't exist unless I was writing checks. I would remember how small I felt, how worthless, how used, and the pain would dissipate, replaced by something stronger: self-respect. 6 months into my new life, I did something I had never done before. I embarked on a trip by myself simply because I wanted to. I spent 2 weeks in Santa Fe, wandering through art galleries, dining at delightful restaurants, and staying in a charming bed and breakfast. I purchased a beautiful turquoise necklace, more than I had ever spent on myself before. Each morning, I awoke without anxiety, without dread, and without the weight of others' expectations weighing me down. I was free. The funds from the house sale, combined with my remaining savings, allowed me to live comfortably for the rest of my life without worry. I could travel when I desired, take classes, and contribute to causes I believed in. I could genuinely enjoy the life Richard and I had worked so hard to build, rather than witnessing it drain away into the bottomless pit of my children's entitlement. I am now 70. My life in Asheville is quiet, peaceful, and entirely my own. I have friends who value me, hobbies that fulfill me, and a home that is truly mine, free of ghosts, expectations, and bitter memories. Sometimes people ask if I have children, and I respond affirmatively, but add that we are not close. I do not elaborate. Their story is no longer mine to tell. Would I have chosen this path if my children had treated me differently? Absolutely not. I would have given anything to have them in my life as genuine family, not as users. But they made their choice, and I made mine. They sought an inheritance. Instead, they received a lesson they will carry for the rest of their lives. You cannot inherit from someone you have already lost. And they lost me long before I sold that house. They lost me the moment they decided I was worth more dead than alive. I disappeared, just as I said I would, and I have never been happier. This is my life now, and it belongs to nobody but me. That is all the justice I needed. Please subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.